There have been some incredible teams in college football over the past 30 years, and they have been the iconic teams that have set the stage for the way we see college football, and this has led them down the road to some historic national championship runs. But with all these teams playing in different eras, there can always be a debate on who was the greatest. But today we try to answer that question. So I put 15 of them back into the NCAA at the same time, and they're all going to be in the same conference. And then as we sim through the season, we will track the progress of each team, and I developed a scoring system to give each of them points for major achievements like winning the conference, winning a national championship, or a Heisman. Then whichever team leads a conference in total yards, rush yards, points per game, and all the defensive categories, they will get points. Then whoever has the player who is leading the conference in major stats like QB pass yards or total touchdowns, tackles, or sacks will also give them points to their total GOAT ranking. Now let's do a quick rundown of the 15 teams in our sim. Now starting out west, and we have 5 great teams, and on these teams we have a total of 3 national championships between them, and these are their rosters. Then in the east we have 5 more teams, and here are their rosters, and between these teams they have 4 national titles. Then moving to the south, there are 5 more teams, and all 5 of these teams took home the national title, and here are their rosters. All right, so here we go again. This is going to be another 3-year sim, and I did do this one previously about just over a month ago, but that one we only tracked offense and there was only 12 teams. So this one we're going to be doing 15 teams. We're going to be tracking offense and defense, and the teams will be getting points for all the defensive categories that they win as well. So now you have to be a complete team. Now, I did add, like I said, 3 whole new teams as well. We'll quickly look at them, and I mean, we can quickly look at all the roster. So here's what the Bama roster looks like. Really good, very good offensively. 2020 Bama. Auburn with Cam Newton, Fairley. Honestly, they're one of the worst teams in the sim, but they actually usually perform pretty freaking well. Clemson with Lawrence and Higgins and AJ Terrell, Isaiah Simmons are super good. Florida with Tebow and Harvin and the Pouncey twins. Hernandez, really good. Jameis Winston and Florida State. Now, one of the new additions is Georgia. So this is the 2022 Georgia Bulldogs. Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Brock Bowers is still on the team. Jalen Carter, Trayvon Walker, Devontae Wyatt. So they are insane defensively, decent offensively with Pickens, and they have Bennett at QB, who's decent. They have some decent running backs, Cook. Wide receivers, they have Pickens and McConkey, but obviously they are more defensive slanted. So that'll be really interesting to see how these kind of defensive teams, skew. Still have obviously 2019 LSU, one of the best teams ever. Joe Burrow, Chase Jefferson. One of the other new additions is Miami with Ed Reed, Andre Johnson, Bryant McKinney, Vilma, Clinton Portis, Jeremy Shockey. They are one of the most balanced teams ever. Ken Dorsey is kind of their weak link at quarterback, but still really good. They have an insane freshman class. They're going to have Sean Taylor at freshman, Kellen Winslow, Willis McGahee, Roscoe Parrish. So crazy. Oh, and then there's one more team I'm not going to look at every team here. We'll quickly skim, but the other brand new team that is going to be a part of this sim is going to be Michigan, another team that is slanted defensively. So they have Charles Woodson, and I gave him a Charles Woodson on offense because he actually played both ways this year, won the Heisman Trophy. Steve Hutchinson at guard, Brian Griese at QB. Really good team, really good defense, and that is how they are shaping up. So we are going to be simming through 3 seasons. I'm going to be controlling Army, so I, don't have control. They're going to just, let whoever plays, and we're just going to go in, see how each team does. I put them all in the SEC, and I made a North and South division. So all of the South teams like Bama, LSU, Georgia. Then there's kind of the non-South teams. So I called that the North division, like USC, Oregon, Nebraska, all those, Oklahoma, all those type of teams are in one division as well. So we are just going to sim to about week 5 right here, and then we are going to go take a look at the stats and see where everyone's sitting. All right, so we are now in week 6, and the first thing we are going to do is we're going to look at the conference standings. I put everyone in the SEC, so now we can just sort by the SEC, see where everyone sits, and we know everybody's going to be playing each other, and it just makes it a lot easier for us to track, and we know, everybody's playing really tough teams. And wow, there we go. Ohio State Buckeyes 4-0, Auburn Tigers 4 4-0, SC 4-1, Nebraska, Michigan, Texas, Florida, LSU. Then if we go to the bottom, Georgia 0-5, Bama 0-5. That is shocking. Oregon 1-2. Wow, Alabama and Georgia, that is shocking. That is just straight up shocking. So that is where we sit so far. Obviously it's super early, but 0-5 starts, that is not a good look for Alabama and Georgia, obviously. Then if we look at the top 25, Ohio State in first, SC in third out of our guys, Clemson right there, Michigan in there, Auburn, Florida, Texas. So that's kind of where they sit in the top 25. Now the big thing with my sims, what I like to do is I basically make a scoreboard, and for how each team performs throughout the sim each season, they get a certain amount of points. Now, I did do this sim earlier where I just tracked offense, but so you only got points for that. But now you need to be a balanced team. You're going to get points for offense and defense. So that is going to be the big difference here. We're just going to sort by NCAA, SEC right here. We're going to look at offense first in total yards. We have LSU, Florida, Nebraska, Miami, USC. And basically how this works in each of the categories I pick, it's total yards. I think it's rush yards and points per game here. You will get 5 points if you get first at the end of the season in this ranking. So 5, if this was the end, it would be 5 for LSU, 4 for Florida, 3 for Nebraska, 2 for Miami, 1 for USC, and you would go down. Now, I don't do passing yards because that kind of skews more towards total yards, but I do look at rushing yards, and we have Nebraska. Now, if you're a little younger, you don't know much about Nebraska. I didn't know a ton of them before I kind of started this channel, but they won the national championship in '95, one of the best rushing teams ever. They ran like a triple option, run heavy offense, and they are at 1,700 yards. I'll be shocked if they don't lead, the SEC in rushing every single year. So 1,700 yards for them, 1,000 for Ohio State, Miami's right there, SC, Texas, Florida. Then, like I said, now we're going to be looking at defense as well. So look at Alabama and Georgia, the 2 worst defenses in the conference. That is bizarre. That Georgia defense is absolutely stacked. But Ohio State, Texas, Florida, or Oregon, Michigan, Nebraska are the top 5 there. Here I'm going to give them points for total yards, pass defense, rush defense, points allowed, sacks, and interceptions. So the only ones out of this group that you won't get points for is fumble recoveries. I don't think that's very important. So yeah, they're going to get points all along here. Let's see, at least points: Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, Oregon. Then look, if you flip it, Bama and Georgia once again just performing just awful. Sacks: LSU, Miami, Florida State, Bama, Florida. Crazy. And then if we look at interceptions, Texas, USC, Florida State, Oklahoma. So that's how they're all performing defensively. Super interesting. But obviously this is just early in the year, so it is all going to change. Okay, now we're going to look at season stats. We're also going to, sort by SEC here. So now we can look at how each player is performing as well. So if we look at passer rating, we have Cam Newton, Tebow, Burrow, Justin Fields, Matt Leinart, Vince Young right there, Marcus Mariota. So that's kind of where everyone sits there. If we look at total passing yards, Burrow, Tebow, Mayfield, Leinart, Newton. Now, offensively, they're all going to get points as well. But here I'm just going to give the top 3 points. So if your QB finishes with the most total passing yards, that is going to be 3 points to your total. If you finish second, that's 2 points, and third is 1 point. And they'll get it for QB rating, total passing yards, and total touchdowns. So I'm going to combine rushing and passing. So that'll kind of even out for someone like Cam Newton, who runs, a lot. If he gets a lot of rushing touchdowns, that'll help balance it out. That's where they all are with rushing touchdowns. Okay, look at Lawrence Phillips. Now, he's a starting running back, obviously, for Nebraska. They are going to run the rock. He has 113 carries for 800 yards in like 5 or 6 games. So I guess actually 4 or 5 games. So he is toting the rock. Then his teammate is actually 3rd in the conference. So they run this triple option style. They are going to be running the ball an absolute ton. So we have Ahmad Green there, Clinton Portis for Miami, J.K. Dobbins, Devontae Freeman, Reggie Bush right there, Lendale White, Chris Howard, Kenyon Barner, Jamal Charles. There's Tommy Frazier. So QBs are also going to get points if they finish, first in rushing yards out of QBs. So Tommy Frazier, Cam Newton, Vince Young, a 1, 2, 3 right there, and Tebow's right there as well. Then, like I said, we will be adding the QB rushing touchdowns to their total at the end, so that'll balance out that way there. If we look at receiving yards, Jack Beck is somehow leading for LSU, and then Jamar Chase. They have the top 3 receivers in the conference. Blake, Rashad, Jalen Waddle, McConkey, DeAnthony Thomas, Steve Smith, Mark Andrews, Andre Johnson, Dwayne Jarrett. So that's kind of where everyone's looking there. And there is receiving touchdowns. Whoa. Then the last thing we are going to look at is defense. So it's going to be the same thing. They are going to get points. If you lead the conference in tackles, you'll get 3 points. Second one, tackles for loss, sacks, and interceptions. Those are the kind of the ones we are looking at. Now, I have looked in past sims when I do this. The defensive stats don't end up being super crazy. Offense guys will put up crazy stats, like usually like the leader in sacks is like 8.5, 9. Leader in interceptions is like 3 or 4. So I don't know. These stats won't be as crazy. The team stats for defense are really going to be the ones that matter the most. But for total tackles, we have Telvin Smith, Amari Burney, Brenton Cox. Let's see if we see some big names. Lawrence Jackson, Barrymore, Carlos Dunlap, freshman Will Anderson. So that's kind of where everyone's sitting there. If we look at TFLs, Ali Gay, Brenton Cox, so that's the other thing too. A lot of the times, like the tackles for loss aren't even the high overall players. Like Telvin Smith there's Jonathan Vilma, Devontae Wyatt. So there's some of them starting to come into the equation. If we look at sacks, Gay is first for big names. See what I mean? Devontae Wyatt, 3.5. So not huge sack numbers. Let's see. Michael Griffin, so Texas safety with 3, and then a ton of guys, including Derek Stingley with 2 interceptions. Oh, actually, I do remember someone asked, I'm not going to give points for this, but someone asked to see kick return yardage. I'll probably try to just look at that at the end of the year, but this is where we'll see if anybody has like crazy numbers. Nothing super crazy for kick returns. For big guys, we'll see punt returns here, Benson Gore. So that is everyone. That's where everyone's sitting after week 6. So we won't be going that in depth with the stats every single time, but this was the first time we'll look at them. So I wanted to give you guys a really good deep dive, but we will be looking at them throughout the year. And then at the end of every season, I will total up the points, see where everyone sits, and give you guys a point total. And whoever has the most points after the 3-year sim is going to go down as the best team. Now we are going to sim 3 years, and I did make everybody freshmen. So they will be getting better over time. And some of the teams where they have Sean Taylor, let's say, who's a freshman on Miami, as he gets older, obviously he will get a lot better. So by the end, the teams do get pretty stacked, but I do like it because we get to see the progression and we can see the total stats of where everyone sits after 3 years and stuff like that. So that is how that is going to work as well. Looking at the upcoming schedule, I just want to see kind of going into the future. We'll probably go around like week 9 or 10 or 10 or 11 actually. And I want to see if there's any really good matchups like this. Ohio State SC. So I think I might just sim, or Nebraska Texas. Okay, we're gonna sim to week 10 here, and we're gonna see where both those teams sit, and if both of them are still 1-0 or 1 loss, then we can actually hop down on the field and I super sim the game. And if it's close late in the 4th quarter, then we can actually watch and we can see Reggie Bush on the field, we can see Justin Fields, we can see all of those guys in action. All right, here we are in week 10. So first thing we're gonna look at is I want to see conference standings. Let's see where each one of these guys sits. Let's see if we can get a really good matchup here in week 10. So Nebraska 7-1, SC 7-2, Auburn 6-2, Texas. There we go. Let's see the bottom of the bracket. Bama and Georgia 2-7 and 2-6. That is shocking that both of them that had that type of showing. At 2019 LSU not doing great. Miami, Michigan okay. So Nebraska, SC, Auburn, Texas, and still Ohio State 5-2. They are still in the running. Those kind of seem like the top of the bracket. Let's see top 25. Let's see where everyone's sitting. So we have Pitt in first, Utah Utes, SC in 3rd in the country, Nebraska in 5th, Ohio State, Texas. So that's where everyone's sitting. Let's see the Heisman. I want to see anybody is kind of in the, Lawrence Phillips leading the way, then Vince Young, Cam Newton. So that's the other thing, guys. They are going to get points also to the team score if they do things like win the Heisman Trophy. I think they get 7 points. Win the Natty, I believe it's 10. Win the conference championship, I think the winner gets 5. So you also get if Lawrence Phillips wins the Heisman, that is 7 points for Nebraska. So that could be low-key pretty huge. Okay, I want to look at scores and schedules here. I want to see if any of these matchups are still worth hopping in. If not, we can always sim a little bit further. 2 lost teams, 3-6 in the country. I mean, both those games are pretty good. I think I want to see Nebraska, Texas a little bit more though, honestly. So we're just going to hop into this game. And like I said, if it's close in the fourth quarter, we are going to check it out. So that's where they sit, both 99 overall. Texas has the better defense, but obviously both really good teams. So this is where they sit team-wise. So 4th and 8th in points per game. Nebraska statistically actually has the better defense in Texas as well. Here's their top players: Lawrence Phillips, Ahmad Green, and their center. Then we have Vince Young, Jamal Charles, and Justin Blaylock. Here we go. Nebraska, Texas. Let's see it. We are in Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska. Let's get this going. A little cold out there. You can see their breath. That might bode well for Nebraska and wanting to run the football. But I mean, hey, you got Vince Young, Jamal Charles. Texas is going to be able to run the football as well. We're just going to sim to the fourth quarter, see where we sit. Wow. After one, Texas jumps up to a 14-7 lead, but Nebraska's right back in it. Damn. Okay. So Texas just comes into Lincoln and lays a bit of a smackdown. Okay. They were up big, but they're making it interesting. Okay. Let's see. Wow. 28-33. They were down like 25 points or something. Okay. So Nebraska down 5. They came back from like 25 down in this game. Crazy comeback. They get the ball right here with 2:07 left, and we are going to watch this drive. So they have it backed up kind of far. They need a touchdown to score, but they have 2:07, 3 timeouts. They're not really built, they're built to run the ball. Frazier on the option, and he gets hit in the backfield. Huge play by that Texas D-line. Nebraska's not really built for this. They want to play out in front, but I mean, they still have a shot. They're still a very, very good team, obviously. So we will see. Lost some time there. Tommy Frazier in shotgun, drops back, straight drop, and he's going to run. He's going to tuck and run, but Texas's defense holds him to 4 or 5 yard gain. We're in 3rd and 7, and this clock is moving. Nebraska is hurrying to the line. Instead of using a timeout, you have 3. I probably would have, but Frazier drops back, and he's just going to tuck it and run and goes down. That is 4th and 10. I think that's Brian Robinson. Yup, Brian Robinson with this sack. 4th and 10. This is the game right here. I mean, technically, Nebraska has 3 timeouts, but this is pretty much going to do it. And they get too much pressure. Texas's D-line dominates Nebraska's O-line. Texas comes up huge, and that should do it. So that is going to be it. Texas comes into Lincoln, Nebraska. Look at Vince Young, 360 total yards and 3 TDs. So there's VY, 330 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, 30 on the ground. Jamal Charles had 87. Receiving, Jamal 112 through the air. Casey Kane had 114. Then if we go look at Nebraska, 125 for Clester Palmer. So good game for him. Tommy and Ahmad got absolutely shut down. And yeah, Frazier actually had a decent game through the air with 3 touchdowns, but he threw 3 picks. So that is obviously going to bite you in the ass a little bit there. But there we go. That brings Nebraska down to 2 losses. Texas ties up their record right there. So that is a huge win for Texas. All right, so we're just going to sim to conference championship weekend. We got to see a game. We're going to see who the conference championship is. And usually I will go watch one of those games because, I mean, it's going to be 2 of our best teams. And usually if they both have good records, whoever wins that game has a really good shot to make the national final. All right, so here we are, conference championship weekend. Let's look at these conference standings and see where everyone sits, see what our SEC final is going to look like. So 10-2 USC, 10-2 Texas, but they are in the same conference. They have the same conference record, so I'm assuming they played head-to-head. I don't know who came out on top. Auburn, Nebraska, Ohio State, Florida, Miami. So I'm guessing it's going to be Auburn versus one of USC or Texas. Then if we look at the bottom, Oregon, Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Clemson. So a lot of teams kind of in the middle there. Bama and Oregon and Georgia really were the worst teams, which is kind of shocking, but there we go. And wow, SC and Texas are the 1 and 2 teams in the country right now. So there it is. So it's USC versus Auburn. Now, if SC wins, they probably make the Natty. And if Texas gets to stay at 1 or 2, that would be sick, because then we could get them in the final, which would be unreal, but we never know. Sometimes how they do the final, the national final, can be super, super weird. But so here's the Heisman. So obviously this isn't final, but Charbonnet is in first and Phillips, Young, and Cam. So that is where everyone sits. Now, we will kind of wait and look at the final stats more at the end of the year, and we'll see where everyone kind of ended up. But I want to hop in. We're going to see some of this conference final. We're going to see, I'm guessing USC is going to win, but I mean, you got Cam Newton. You ain't scared of nobody. He's going to give you a shot always. So Auburn, SEC, if SC wins, should make the national final. If Auburn wins, they won't, but they will be playing spoiler a little bit here. So let's see what happens. So that's where they sit. 5th ranked scoring offense in the nation versus 7th, 101st points per game allowed, which is not good at all, versus 66, which isn't great either. But I mean, both very good offensively, but it definitely seems like SC should have the edge. Here's their top 3: Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, Ryan Khalil versus Cam, Michael Dyer, and Nick Fairley. Okay, here it is. Let's see. So SEC championship. If SC wins, have a really good shot of playing in the national final, possibly against Texas, which would be crazy. That'd be like rematch of the greatest college football game ever played between the 05 Texas versus 05 USC. This is 04 USC, but basically the same team. So that I'm really open for that. I'm pulling for SC in this game just to see that. It'd be cool to have 2 of our teams in the national final, but hey, you got to play the game. So we're going to sim till the 4th quarter, and we'll see where we're at. Wow. After 1, Auburn 21-7 lead. Crazy. Wow. 42 points at halftime for Auburn. They have taken it to USC. SC's going to need a huge 3rd quarter or they are done. And SC can just not stop Cam. I don't know. We'll see. There's Cam scoring again. So USC's putting up points, but they literally can't stop Cam. They're down 10. They need a stop here. But Cam goes down 63 points for Auburn, and SC goes right down and scores. This is insane, but they literally can't stop Cam. So we're not even going to really get to see any. 66-60 onside kick recovered by Auburn. SC only has 1 timeout. So it is over. Cam is taking kneels on the football. Wow. 66-60 in the SEC final. I cannot wait to see the stats in this. Okay, so they're not gonna have any time. Actually, they can just, Auburn can let this go down to 0. So wow, I cannot wait to see the final stats. I obviously really wanted to see, there it is, 66-60 final. I really want to see Texas USC in the Natty, but that is insane. So Cam, 532 yards and 7 touchdowns against USC. Holy crap. That is insane. Barely even tried to run the ball. He had 26 yards on the ground. He had 8 total touchdowns for Cam Newton. Cam freaking Newton. There's his receivers, 2 with $150 and another one with 85 and another one with 91. That is insane. Then Dwayne Jarrett, Steve Smith, Washington, huge games. Wow. Reggie Bush, 53 yards. So neither team could really run, but 8 touchdown passes for Matt Leinart. That is crazy. I've never had it simmed a game where it was scoring like that. That is insane. Both QBs had 8 touchdowns, but SC could not get a stop on Cam Newton and they lose. So they are going to be out. Hopefully Texas makes the Natty. If not, we are going to have nobody representing the SEC out of these stacked teams. All right, so we're just going to advance weeks. We are going to just sim to bowl season. We're going to see what bowls all our guys are in, see if any of our, see if Texas made the Natty, and then we'll sim through the bowls and then we'll look at the final stats for season 1. Damn, so Zach Charbonnet wins the Heisman over Phillips, Cam, and Vince Young were 2 through 4. Crazy. Charbonnet just squeaking that out. Cam after that last game, I can't even imagine what Cam's stats look like. Okay, so Texas is in the Natty against North Carolina. We'll see all the bowl matchups. I don't think any of our guys will be matched up against each other, but we'll see what bowls they're in. Oklahoma right there. Michigan, TCU. Florida, Purdue. Miami versus Iowa State. USC versus Wake Forest. Clemson made one. Nebraska with 3 losses playing Mississippi State. Ohio State versus North Carolina State. Auburn playing in the Sugar Bowl against UCF. LSU 6-6. That is surprising. Didn't really show up, and there it is. The Natty is going to be North Carolina versus Texas. So once again, we're going to hop in this. We're just going to super sim through. I mean, look at Texas should win this. If Texas wins the Natty, that'll be absolutely massive. I gotta look at my score sheet, but I believe they will get 10 points for that, which would be wild. But obviously we will see. Wow, North Carolina doesn't have the talent on paper, but second in points per game, first in yards, absolutely incredible offensively. They have Drake May at quarterback, so that is what their top three is going to look like. I mean, you never know. Texas is the heavy favorite, but UNC could easily get the upset. All right, so we're just going to sim to the fourth quarter and we'll see where we're at. Wow, okay, so halftime, very close game, one possession game, 24-17. We're going to sim to the fourth quarter and we will see. All right, 31 all at the start of the fourth quarter. Here we're going to go by possession here. Make sure we can see it. Okay, so 4.5, still 31 all, 34-31. Okay, so May is going to get the ball back. Okay, he's got it. Drake May is driving. But almost 600 yards of total offense for North Carolina. They just need a touchdown and they will have a crazy upset against this Texas team. May and shotgun, they are overmatched. This Texas defense is great, but hey, Drake May is trying to deliver North Carolina a national title. They are letting this clock wind down. May and shotgun fires it underneath, but dropped. May has 500 passing yards against this Texas defense. That is very good. Okay, second and 10. Oh my goodness, I just simmed one play. May got it deep inside of Texas territory. He's going to be in field goal range. $1:15 left. Drops back. Scans, finds a slant over the middle for another 5-6 yards. 523 pass yards for Drake May. Antonio Green, 82 yards right there. Smashing the passing yards in a season for this North Carolina squad. Here we go, 50 seconds left. North Carolina trying to upset our Texas squad, who's in our SEC, one of the best teams of all time, trying to win the Natty in their first year. May drops back, find another open receiver underneath who dives forward, gets the first down. Craziness. Drake May is trying to put the nail in Texas's coffin right here. This will be back-to-back huge upsets with Auburn upsetting USC. It would have been USC versus Texas right now. Screen pass in the flats. They hit their running back. He gains 3-4 yards. He stays in bounds, so clock is running. Texas, you gotta try to hold them to 3 or this game is basically over there. Wow, they're gonna spike the ball. I don't know if I love that play call. 29 seconds left. You have one timeout. So now you basically have one shot at the end zone if you are North Carolina here. If not, you're kicking 3. But hey, if you can pound this in, you are going to basically take home the Natty right here. Drake May drops back. He's a curl. He has the curl. Oh my gosh, I think he's short. I think he was a few inches short there. He easily looked like he could have dove in there. Most passing yards in a game, 551 in the national title, but he is short. That is going to make it 4th and goal. I don't know why they're picking Drake May up, guys. It is 4th and goal. This field goal should be good, obviously, but wow, they were that close to upsetting Texas right there. Kick is up and kick is good, and we are going to overtime, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so I'm going to super sim a little bit. Okay, so Texas, oh no, they hit a field goal. So now Texas goes up 3. North Carolina's ball. I don't really want to watch every drive. I just don't want this video to get too long, but we will see. Okay, they're finally going to try to run the ball, and there is absolutely nothing there. 2nd and 13. Probably super sim one play here. 3rd and 16. Wow, so they are losing yards here. This actually is going to make it a tough kick unless May can get some yardage. They're going to go empty here. This Texas front is going to be pinning their ears back. May and shotgun drops back. Oh, I thought that was going to be intercepted, but he gets the first down. Drake May is going to have over 600 yards of offense against this friggin' Texas secondary that is loaded. That is crazy. Oh, and I super simmed one too many plays, and there it is. Drake May threw a touchdown. Wow. Drake May upsets Texas. North Carolina takes this one. Incredible. A huge 3rd and 16, and I super simmed one play, but May throws a touchdown the next play, and that is it. Texas does not get points for that. Wow. Texas and USC, neither of them win the Natty. Drake May goes absolutely nuclear in this game. We look at player stats. He attempted 58 passes, 582 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Literally 0 running game, just pass the rock everywhere. Josh Downs had a huge game, his number 1 option offensively. Looking at Texas, 83 yards for Jamal, 93 on the ground. So Jamal had a good game, 50. So like Texas played well, but they just could not stop Drake May when it mattered most. Wow. National championship, North Carolina. Crazy, crazy. Okay, so now we are just going to sim through the rest of bowl season. Then we're going to look at all the final stats. We're going to look where everyone finished. We'll kind of go through where everyone gets the points. Then I'm going to actually go add up all the points, and I'll just hop back right in the video. It'll take 2 seconds for you guys. And then we'll hop into season 2, but I will show you guys where everyone sits score-wise after season 1. All right, looking at the team stats first, and obviously we are going to go just in the SEC. That's all we care about here. Okay, now looking at first in total offensive yards, and first by just a little bit over Auburn is USC. So SC is going to get 5 points for that. Then Auburn is going to get 4 for being in third. LSU will get 3 for being in second. Ohio State will get 2. Oklahoma will get 1. And Nebraska just misses out for points there. Then we're actually going to skip passing yards because we kind of already give passing yards for the QBs, and it's going to correlate very closely to total yards. But we are going to look at rushing yards because people who run the ball a ton aren't going to quite get the same total yards, but we still need to, see how well they did. And look at Nebraska. 4,100 yards, 1,300 more than second place Ohio State. Absolutely freaking insane. SC third there. So they were first in total yards, third in rushing yards. Miami, then Texas, Michigan just misses out. And then if we look at total points per game, SC first again. So it was SC 5 points, Texas 4, Auburn 3, Ohio State 2, Florida 1. So that's where we're going to give the points there. Then we're going to go look at defense, and we're going to see total yards allowed. The best defense out of our 15 teams is Ohio State. So they're going to get 5 for that, for best overall defense. Then it's going to be Nebraska in second, Georgia in third. So Georgia was pretty low at the start of the year, but they kind of came back record-wise, but definitely came back total yards-wise. Then Miami, Florida State, Michigan just misses out. Then we're going to also look at passing yards allowed. Ohio State, Nebraska, Florida hops in there, Michigan hops in there, and then Miami there. We're also going to look at best rushing D. So it's going to be Nebraska, then Georgia, Miami, LSU, Texas gets 1 point there. Total points allowed, Ohio State, Nebraska. So Nebraska ended up getting quite a few points because they did really well offensively as well. Miami, Texas, Florida. I want to see who is just the worst defensive team. So we have Auburn, OU, Oregon, Bama, SC. So some make sense, some a little surprising, but that's where we sit. Then we're also going to give 5 points for most sacks. So Miami, 5 points, 4 for LSU, 3 for Texas, 2 for Florida State, 1 for Auburn. Then if we look at interceptions, Texas gets 5, 4 for Nebraska, 3 for Florida State, 2 for Ohio State, and then Auburn and Oklahoma were tied, so they'll each get 1. Wow. Crazy. Okay, now we're going to look at player stats as well, and I will be divvying out points for all of this as well. So whoever is the best QB rating will get 3 points. Second will get 2, 1 for third. So Cam, Tim, then Liner, and Burrow just misses out. Let's see who kind of the worst QBs were. Brian Greasy kind of checks out. Jameis did not have a good year. Dorsey, not great. And then the rest were like okay, but that's kind of where we're sitting there. Passing yards, easily first by 400 yards, Joe Burrow, then Baker, then Cam. So those 3 will get points. No one else will. Now, total touchdowns. So this is going to add rushing and throwing touchdowns. So I'll have to do a little addition here, but so far it's Cam, Liner, Burrow. But if Tebow or Vince Young, if either of them had, 6 or 7 touchdowns, that can bump them into the top 3. And I mean, Cam, is going to have some rushing touchdowns, so he should be clear there. Okay, moving into rushing yards, 2,000 yards, 700 more than second. We have Lawrence Phillips, then we have J.K. Dobbins, then Chris Howard. So those 3 will finish 1, 2, 3, get 3, 2, 1 points. Reggie Bush just outside the top 5. Etienne, Kenyon Barner, Clinton Portis, Lendale White right there, Ahmad Green. So you could tell SC had 2 1,000-yard rushers with Bush and Lendale. And then Nebraska also had 2 1,000-yard rushers with Phillips and Green, but one of them also had 2,000 yards. So that's crazy. Then rushing touchdowns, we have Phillips, J.K. Dobbins, then Lendale White and Etienne will each get 1 point for their squad. Now, the other thing, I want to look at rushing yards for QBs. So whatever QB finishes first in rushing yards will also get 3 points for that. So that is going to be 3 more points for Auburn, for Cam right there for first in rushing yards for a QB. Then Vince in second right there. And then Tommy Frazier in third. So that is huge. Okay, then lastly, we are going to look at receiving, then also defense. So for receiving, first, second, third in reception. So Darvin Adams, Dwayne Jarrett, Andre Johnson, then Jamar just misses out there, Devontae Beck, Emery Blake, Hollywood Brown, DeAnthony Thomas. We look at receiving yards. It goes first Chase, then Darvin, then Andre Johnson for Miami. Huge there. Beck, Jefferson, Jarrett all finished with over 1,000 yards. If we look at receiving touchdowns, so that'll be 3 points for USC, 2 for Ohio State, and 1 for Auburn there. One other thing, I also give points to running backs who get a ton of receiving yards. So whatever running back had the most receiving yards will also get points. So first is Jamal Charles, had 538 receiving yards. Texas will get 3 points. Then Michael Dyer, that is going to be 2 points for Auburn with 500. Then lastly, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that is going to be another point for LSU. Okay, then we're going to quickly look at defense here. So whoever led the conference in tackles, tackles for loss, sacks, and interceptions will all get points. So tackles, 3 for Florida State and Telvin Smith, Cam, and then Danny Stutzman. Just looking kind of for any big other names. No one else had a great year. Patrick Queen there. Next, we're going to look at TFLs. Gay, Brenton Cox, Kalini, none of the big stars, which is kind of weird about this. Telvin Smith had a really good year. Christian Barrymore right there, that's a good year. Lawrence Jackson, Vilma right there, that's a good year for him. Fairley gonna dominate. Sean Cody for SC. Clellan Farrell, DeForest Buckner right there for Oregon. Mo Sacks, so that's gonna be 3 points for SC, 2 points for Miami, 1 point for Florida. Then lastly, interceptions. Michael Huff with 7 picks. That's a really good year for Huff. So that's gonna be 3 points for Texas, 2 points for LSU with Derek Stingley. Oh, there's a bunch of guys. So we'll just give 1 point to each one of these teams, everybody who had 4. So that'll be another point for Texas, 1 point for Nebraska, 1 point for Clemson, 1 point for Florida, and 1 point for LSU. So that is it, guys. I got to go add all that up. That takes me a little bit, but for you guys, it'll be a split second, obviously. And then we're just going to sim right into year 2. We're going to see how all the players kind of progress, and we'll just go from there. But someone did ask to see return yards. I'm not going to give any points for this, but just see anybody had a crazy year who's like a big name. Obviously Javarius had a good year kick returning. Frank Gore, oh, I didn't even realize. Yeah, that's Frank Gore. He's the backup running back for Miami, getting 400 yards. That's cool. Yeah, so there it is, guys. I'm gonna go add up these stats and you will see them pop up right now. All right, so after the first season, this is where each team sits, and surprisingly, Auburn is actually in first place with 38 points. Then 95 Nebraska is in second with 33. 04 USC is in third with 29. 05 Texas is right behind them with 28 points in fourth. LSU right behind them at 27 points in fifth. Then Ohio State in sixth with 25 points. And then 2001 Michigan in seventh with 20. Now, I would say these 7 teams still have a shot of getting first overall. I think all the other teams are going to be in a tough spot. We have a few teams with 0 points overall. All right, so here we are at the start of season 2. Now, I do want to go just kind of quickly through some of the teams, see how much better. Obviously, as we go, these players are just going to get better and better. I do like to do it this way because we do get to see some progression through the season, and we do get to see like the career stats and how each one did at the end of the whole sim. I have had some comments saying you could, reset the whole season after each one and start with everybody and just basically replay the season. But I do like to kind of see the progression and see everybody's stats at the end of the whole sim. So that was Alabama. Here's Auburn. So you see how stacked Alabama is. It is kind of shocking they were that bad last year. I might miss 1 or 2 teams when I go through here, but we'll try to look at everyone quickly, see how everyone's producing. I'd say Alabama so far looks like the amount of 90s, like, oh my God, look at this. So 99s across the board here. Absolutely crazy, really good all the way through. So that'll be interesting to see. Florida State's huge jump for a lot of guys, but you see Florida, Alabama, Georgia is probably going to be crazy. Still a ton of like 99s. George Pickens goes up to 99. Lewis Cine goes up to 99. Depth throughout. Yeah, I'd say Bama honestly looked the scariest to me so far. Oh my goodness, the LSU 99s. I mean, LSU still did good last year. Stat-wise, their record wasn't great. I'm expecting a pretty big improvement there. Miami, they were a bit of a letdown, honestly, too, but they have some crazy young guys who are getting better. Sean Taylor, Kellen Winslow, and Terrell Roll, so they are going to be right there. 97 Michigan, holy, yeah, they're pretty freaking stacked, especially at the top. I don't know if they're quite as deep as some of the teams. 95 Nebraska, who's in second after the first year, super good, very solid all the way around. Ohio State, who actually, oh my god, look at the 99s on them. Ohio State had an amazing year last year, so we will see in year 2 how they do. Oklahoma, probably one of the lesser talented teams, but still a ton of firepower and the ability to, you know, make some noise. Here we have Oregon, getting better. They have some young D linemen like Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner that, as we go in the sim, should just make them better and better defensively. Like I said, I might miss a team here and there. Texas is one of the best teams. Vince Young always kills it in these sims. Here's 04 USC, one of the better teams in season 1. I don't know if they're quite as deep and star-studded as Bama, but some really good players. So I think that's basically everyone. I might have missed 1 or 2 teams, but that is kind of where we are sitting. So we are just going to sim to about week 5 or 6, and then we will see how everyone's doing, see what the records are, take a quick look at stats, and get this thing going. All right, so here we are in week 6. Let's look at these conference standings and see where each one of these teams are at. So Michigan 3-0, the only undefeated team left in the conference so far. And then we have Florida, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas, Ohio State, Clemson, all with 1 loss. USC has 2 losses, but 3 wins. Then kind of getting near the bottom, Bama. I don't know what is up with Bama. They started 0-5 last year. They're 0-4, 1-3 for Miami. That is crazy. Those had to be honestly maybe the 2 favorites coming into the, you know, the sim, and they are both not performing very well. Nebraska farther down, Georgia at least a better start than last year. So that is where everyone's sitting. We can go take a little quick look at the season stats, kind of just see where everyone is. Actually, we'll look at team stats first. See where everyone's kind of sitting this far in. So if we look at total yards, obviously some teams have not played as many games as other, but LSU, Nebraska, Florida, USC, Florida State, Georgia at the top there. That was total yards. Total offensive yards, basically the same. Pass yards, LSU. So LSU looks like the most dynamic passing team in the sim by far. We look at rushing, obviously Nebraska is always going to be right near the top. We look at point scoring, Miami. So it must be Miami's defense is letting them down with a 1-3 record. LSU, Nebraska, Michigan, Oregon, Auburn. And I guess we could look at the low scoring. Bama cannot put it together. Wow, 23 points per game for Bama. That is crazy. Okay, then we can go look at defense. Total yards allowed, LSU in last. Florida, Florida State, Alabama. Like Alabama and Georgia can't play defense, which is bizarre. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson starting to make some noise. Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma. Passing yards allowed, Ohio State, Clemson, Michigan, Oregon. Rush yards allowed, Michigan looks like the best defense probably right now. Michigan, Ohio State, one of them. And then if we look at, yeah, so Michigan, Clemson, Ohio State. But yeah, all doing really well defensively. If we look at sacks, Bama has sacks, but that's about all they're doing well. Interceptions, Ohio State has picked off 7 passes. Wow, looking at QB rating, and Cam Newton is absolutely shredding. 200 QB rating. You look at Burrow at 195, obviously great. Tebow, Lawrence, Mariota. If we look at the bottom, no one's honestly playing that bad QB rating, like QB efficiency wise. Like 140 is pretty decent in college. Total passing yards, Burrow, pretty commanding lead there. That's where everyone else is. Burrow already 24 touchdown passes. If we look at interceptions, 6 for Burrow leading the way, but he's throwing a ton. Mariota, 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. A lot of guys with some, 1-0 interceptions there. That's crazy. Okay, we'll look at rushing quick. Obviously, Ahmad Green. Lawrence looks like he's the backup now, and we have Ahmad Green as the starter, but Lawrence is second. So they have the 1 and 2 rushers for Nebraska. crazy. Then we have Reggie Bush, Devontae Freeman, James Cook, Chris Howard, J.K. Dobbins, Kenyon Barner, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. First and second in rushing friggin' touchdowns. Okay, let's actually look at QB rush yards as well. So let's see where the first one we get. So Vince Young in first. Then we have Tommy Frazier. So they have the first rushing yards for a running back, second rushing yards for running back, and the second rushing yards for QB. So that is crazy. Then we have Tim Tebow right there. So, and Justin Fields. So that's where they all sit there. Then we'll look at receiving. Justin Jefferson, Aaron Hernandez. I never really have tight ends performing super well in the Sims, but obviously if the tight end finishes as the second leading receiver, the Florida will get points for that. So that's cool to see. 19.5 yards per reception for a tight end. That is crazy. Amari Blake, then Andre Johnson, Javarius Johnson there. I also want to look at yards and just look at where the running backs are kind of coming in. Another tight end with Brock Bowers. Tight end in Mark Andrews, Jeremy Shockey. Okay, there's our first running back with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Then we have Michael Dyer and Chris Rainey, Najee Harris. So that is where we are sitting stat-wise. Very interesting. Okay, now I want to look at scores and schedules, and I want to see, around week 9, week 10, week 11, if we have any really good matchups. I definitely want to try to get on the field and watch a game or two this year. So usually I like to watch at least one in the regular season. Then we can kind of wait for the SEC championship and then possibly the Natty. Clemson, Oklahoma, that could be decent. Texas, Oregon, Bama, LSU would be cool, but no. USC, Ohio State. So maybe we could go to week 10. Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Michigan, Texas. That could be cool. Okay, I think that Michigan-Texas game could be really good, but we're just going to sim to week 10. Then we'll see if any of those matchups are still looking pretty prime, and then we could hop in one. All right, so here we are in week 10. Let's go look at the conference standings once again. Wow, 7-1 Texas, 6-1 Michigan, 6-1 Ohio State. So those three are looking like houses right now. LSU, Georgia, Florida, Oregon, Oklahoma, Miami, USC falling off. So Bama had a bit of a rebound. At least they're not, winless. Still kind of low. Nebraska a lot lower this year. USC a lot lower this year. So definitely some pretty big changes. Texas still right near the top like last year. Okay, I want to go look at the scores and schedules again. We probably won't look at the stats till the end of the year again, but I want to see if any of these matchups look really good. So Texas, Oregon. Yeah, so none in week 10 that I think are worth watching. Yeah, none in week 11. I think week 12 is our game. Michigan, Texas, both one-loss teams. I think they're in the same division. So the winner of that will have the inside track to win the SEC North and make it to the SEC championship game. So we're going to sim to week 12. Then we are going to watch that game. All right, I want to hop right back into conference standings. Hopefully both those teams are still at one loss. Michigan at 2 losses now, but they're right there with Texas. We are definitely going to hop in, watch that game. So I actually want to look at the top 25, see where our whole SEC is sitting there. So Texas, number 1 team in the country, then Utah, UCLA, Georgia, even though they're 3 losses, LSU, Ohio State, Florida. Where's Michigan? Michigan's way down, 13. But there we are, kind of guys, teams still in the running. Let's look at the Heisman. Let's see if any of our guys. Vince Young, Heisman favorite, then Timmy Tebow and Ahmad Green in 5th. So that is huge. 2 ballers at QB leading the way. Okay, we are going to go watch this Texas-Michigan game. So there they are, both teams 99s across the board. And let's see what happens. Wow, very close offensively. 7th and 8th in points, 30th and 11th in yards. Looks like Michigan's a little more run heavy, where Texas is a little more balanced and pass heavy. Defensively, neither team's great, but we got to keep in mind they are facing some of the best teams every single week. So it's going to be hard to really play defense against how good these offenses are. But there is their top 3, and Vince Young's not even in it. There is Michigan's top 3. Let's get it going. Oh, it's in the rain. We are in Texas in the rain. You got to think that's a little bit in Michigan's favor, but we will see. All right, we're just going to sim to the 4th quarter, and then we will see where we are at. All right, so it doesn't look like we're going to get a very good game here. Yeah, Texas kind of blows the doors off Michigan. It is 45-10 late in the 4th quarter. So yeah, Texas took it to them. So yeah, Michigan, a bit of a letdown there. Texas just kind of took it to them. Here's the stats. Greasy, 214, 2 picks, not great. Chris Howard, 77 on the ground, decent, not great. Streets, 99 through the air. Okay, not amazing, obviously. Didn't think they were going to put up great yards when, they had 10 total points. Here's Texas's receivers, pretty balanced overall. No one had an amazing day. Limas, Swede led the way. Rushing, I mean, they had a three-headed monster, all do decent, but nothing crazy. So yeah, and actually Quinn Ewers got in the game, but VY played well. Must have been kind of just defensively. They closed the door. Might have got a few defensive scores because none of the yardage was crazy to put up 45 points on Michigan, but there it is. Texas, #1 team in the nation, one loss still. Remains undefeated, lays a beat down on Michigan, only one loss or two losses coming into the game. So that is huge. So we are just going to sim to the conference championship game. I imagine it's going to be Texas. If I guess, I'm just going to say Texas versus 2019 LSU, but we will see. All right, conference championship weekend. I think it showed us a little preview there, but we'll just hop in. It is going to be Georgia versus Texas. So LSU must lose, and they're ranked the number 1 and 2 teams in the country. So hey, that'll be cool to see. We are definitely going to look at that. Let's see where we ended up in the conference standings right here. So SEC 11-1 Texas, Michigan, Georgia, LSU. So Georgia must have beat LSU head to head, so they are going to stay out in front. Florida, Ohio State, Miami, Florida State, Oregon. If we go to the bottom, Clemson 3-9, Bama, Nebraska, Auburn, SC, Oregon. So that is where everyone's final record is going to sit before the bowl games. Okay, we're just going to hop in this game. I hope it is close in the fourth quarter. I'd definitely like to see some of this. There it is, 99s across the board. Let's see it. So that's where they sit. Texas much better offensively, 38 points per game. You know, one of the best offenses in the country. Georgia was respectable, not quite as amazing. Definitely, Georgia has a ton of talent defensively and did perform a decent amount better this year. So definitely a bit of an offensive versus defensive matchup. Here's their top three. We haven't seen Georgia's before. So it's Jordan Davis, George Pickens, Trayvon Walker. So obviously pretty nasty right there. So here it is, SEC championship game. The winner of this will be, well, I mean, I'd assume we'll be going to Natty. If Texas wins, they're 100% in. If Georgia wins, then they will, I'd assume, be in. They're the second ranked team in the nation, but they do have 3 losses, and sometimes the game will just pick weird teams to be in the national final. But heavyweight bout right here, both national championships in their real life season. So the winner of this game also will get, I think it's 5 or 3, I think it's 5 points towards their point total. So the winner of this, that is absolutely huge. We are going to sim to the fourth quarter. Okay, we have a somewhat close 28-25. Georgia just got a big touchdown, Bennett to Pickens for a 31-yard score. Okay, so around 2-3 minutes, I usually hop in if it's close. Texas up 10 again. Oh, I think Georgia just fumbled. Wow, that is gonna do it. Texas looks like an absolute house. Georgia scores late there. Onside kick recovered by Texas. That is gonna be all she wrote. There it is. They're not even gonna let us see the SEC championship game, Sally. But Texas wins 49-33. Texas is putting on a show. Honestly, Bennett played fine. 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. I don't know if it was the kickoff. Someone fumbled right when Georgia got the ball back. They're only down a score. And then Texas went up 2 scores. So that basically put it out of reach. So, you know, Stenson Bennett played very, very well. James Cook and Stenson right there rushing. George Pickens had himself a day. 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brock Bowers over the middle of the field as well. We look over at Texas, Kane and Snead going off with Billingsley. Then Jamal Charles, decent day. Vince added 51 on the ground, 424 yards and 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. So Vince played very, very well. So we'll have to see where everyone sits at team stats, all of those, you know, rushing, passing. We'll have to see if Vincey wins the Heisman too. Texas might be out to a commanding lead after 2 years, but we will see. Okay, so we're going to simulate 2 bowl season. I think the Heisman should get announced right now as well. We'll see what the bowls are like, see who is in the national final. Maybe 2 of our teams will make it. Maybe LSU will be there. They only had 3 losses. I think they would have been right behind Georgia. Wow. Vince Young loses to Garrett Schrader. 43 total touchdowns. I had imagined Vince Young's stats were crazy. Burrow actually finishes 3rd and Tim Tebow in 4th. If VY would have won the Heisman there, that would have been crazy for his totals. We're just going to look at bowl games here. If we go to score and schedules, it'll show all our bowl games. So we have USC 6-6 playing Northern Illinois, Oklahoma 7-5 14-5, not great, but okay. Oregon playing Washington State. Miami playing Michigan. I'm surprised with this Miami showing so far. Ohio State, Baylor. Michigan versus Syracuse. Georgia versus Penn State. That's a pretty good game. Florida versus Missouri. LSU versus Duke. So that means that's the Orange Bowl. That means LSU's not the Natty. I don't think we're going to have anyone playing Texas. Florida State versus Memphis. Utah Utes versus the Texas Longhorns. So once again, we haven't even got to watch anything because every time we've tried, this is going to be our third Texas game we're going to try to watch. And every time Texas plays, it has been a blowout. We see here, they are the much better team on paper, but we will see. At least let's hope Utah can make it close at the end. So that's where they sit. Third ranked offense in the whole country. Utah at 16th, but they had the second best defense. But like I said, keep in mind, they're playing the Pac-12 schools without USC or Oregon in it. So they're not going to be playing the best teams, where Texas's defense has to play some of the best offenses in the country of all time every single week. Here's their top three. Decent, but I mean, you gotta think Texas is going to be able to wrap this up and take this one home. All right, once again, we're just going to go to the fourth quarter and we will see. All right, 14-3 Texas halftime lead. Not looking great for Utah, but hey, there's still a whole another half. Wow, 14 all, and Utah is driving, but I think they're going to, oh wow, they scored. Wow, Utah scores. Huge third quarter for Utah, and they actually have the 7-point lead, but oh my God, there Texas scores a 69-yard touchdown pass, Vince Young to Jamal Charles. So Utah has got to try to answer right here. They have a nice drive, but they punt that football. Texas is going to get it back and they score. Okay, there's 3 minutes left. Oh, and fumble, another fumble. Texas recovers and they go in and score. So in the SEC final, Georgia fumbles, Texas takes the ball, goes right down and scores them. Once again, Utah's actually moved the ball in the second half, but they do come up short. That is crazy. Fourth down, we'll see what they do here, and the Utah player drops it, and that is going to be it. We'll watch this just so we can see a bit of the selly, but Texas is gonna take that home. So they win the SEC, they win the national final. Vince Young comes that close to winning the Heisman. I imagine he's gonna be leading in some categories. We're gonna have to go in and see the final team stats, all the final stats for all the players, and see where they all sit. But Texas, I think, what were they in, second or third after the first year? So I mean, I think they're gonna be in first. They're just gonna collect so many points over this season. And there it is. It's not going to show us the selly again, but Texas takes it home. We're going to look at the stats here. That fumble in the fourth quarter killed them. Barnes had a great day, 400 yards passing, ran for 89 from their running back. This Kuith, their tight end, had 100 yards. Three other receivers with 90. So honestly, Utah played well. Casey Kane, 174 yards. Snead and Jamal Charles. Jamal had a 69-yard touchdown, which is huge. Plus 95 on the ground. Plus another 42 for Vince on the ground. Plus Vince passed for 440 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 INT. Crazy. So VY, I probably should have won the Heisman. He doesn't, but we're going to simp through the rest of bowl season. Then we're going to get all the final stats for year 2. But remember, we got one more year to go. All right, let's look at the final team stats first, and we are going to go to the SEC. Okay, so the number one total offense was actually Texas. That's 5 more points for Texas. They are going to be at, I think they're going to be way out in front here. Ohio State second, LSU third, fourth Miami, 5th USC. So that'll be 1 point USC, 2 points Miami, so on and so forth. Passing yards, LSU first, Texas second. So that's another 4 points for Texas there. OU in third, Auburn fourth, Alabama 5th. Then we look at rush offense. You might as well just lock it in. Nebraska's going to finish with the best rush offense every year. So that's 5 points them, 4 points for Michigan, 3 for USC, 2 for Ohio State, another point for Texas. So they finished there as well. I bet you they're going to be leading the conference in scoring. No, Miami gets 5 points for that. LSU gets 4, Texas gets 3, USC gets 2, Oregon gets 1. Let's just see who the bottom dwellers were. Clemson, Georgia, Bama, Florida State. So those were the ones kind of pulling up the rear offensively. Okay, now we're going to look at defensive stats, and obviously people are going to get points for all this as well. So total offensive yards allowed, Nebraska, the number 1 defense in the conference, Michigan number 2, Miami number 3, Ohio 4, Florida 5. Then for passing yards allowed, Ohio State is going to get 5 points. Florida is going to get 4. Michigan 3. Miami 2. Nebraska 1 point. USC just narrowly misses out there. Then Nebraska right there. 5 points for Nebraska. 4 for Miami. 3 for Michigan. 4 for Georgia. 1 for Bama. Points allowed, Ohio State in first. 5 points, 4 points Georgia, 3 points Michigan, 2 points Florida State, 1 point for Miami. Let's see. So Auburn, Clemson, LSU, Oklahoma, Oregon, Nebraska actually didn't do well points allowed, but they had the least amount of yards, I think, which is kind of weird. But yeah, so Auburn, Clemson, LSU, Oklahoma. Clemson's weird. They have a ton of good defenders. I can kind of see it with LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma, but okay, then sacks. So OU is actually going to get 5 points for those sacks. Georgia's going to get 4. Alabama's going to get 3. 2 for Texas. Texas get 5 points for the most interceptions. That is huge for Texas. 4 points for Ohio State, 3 for Michigan, 2 for Oklahoma. Actually, they'll each get 3, and then Oregon will get 1 point there. So that is where they all sit. Now we're going to look at the player stats as well. And remember, for the player stats, they get 3 for first, second, and 1 for third. Tim Tebow, so that'll be 3 points for Florida there. Then we have Joe Burrow. Then Vince Young gets on the podium there. We look at Brian Griese. I think he's probably the worst QB out of any of them, so that makes sense. Him and Tommy Frazier. But Frazier, considering he's a running quarterback, actually did very well throwing. Stenson Bennett probably is the worst, only a 93 as well. Trevor Lawrence, Matt Leinart, Mac Jones, Ken Dorsey. Okay, then we're going to look at yards. Joe Burrow by 900 yards led the way. Crazy, but Vince Young is going to get 2 more there. Then Mayfield, and then Cam just narrowly misses out. Mac Jones, Tebow, Dorsey, Fields. Tommy only threw for 1,800 yards, but they're just running the ball so much. Then Brian Griese, Matt Leinart, Trevor Lawrence. Passing TDs, Burrow, Mayfield, Vince Young is tied with Dorsey and Tebow and Cam, but I am going to add the QB rushing TDs to that total, and then we will see where they each sit. So I'd imagine Vince and Tebow or Cam will probably be the top 3. Burrow might drop down a little bit, but I don't think he's going to come off the podium. Okay, if we look at rushing yards, Ahmad Green, of course, Nebraska running back. Then Chris Howard for Michigan, James Cook at Georgia. Then the rest just kind of going down so you can kind of see. Kenyon Devontae, Lawrence Phillips right there for Nebraska. J.K. Dobbins, Reggie Bush, Clinton Portis, Jamal Charles, Travis Etienne, Lendale White, Najee Harris, Frank Gore. Okay, and then getting into QB rush yards, we have Vince Young the most. That's going to be 3 more points for Texas. Then Justin Fields right there. That's going to be 2 points for Ohio State. And then Timmy Tebow. Now, I want to look at these guys. So Tebow had 8 touchdowns. Vince Young had 12. Okay, so 12 rushing touchdowns for Vince is going to put him at 57 touchdowns. So he's going to be right there. Tebow, what did Tebow have? I'll do this math. I'll add it up, but I think the top 3 is going to end up being Tebow, Burrow, and Vince Young. But I'll add that up. You don't need to see me trying to count on my fingers right now. But that is where we all sit there. Rushing touchdowns for running backs, we have Ahmad Green, then Reggie Bush, then Chris Howard and Freeman are tied. So that'll be 3 points for Nebraska, 2 points for USC, and a point each for Florida State and Michigan. Then we are going to go down to receiving. Hollywood Brown has the most receptions, then Devontae Smith, then Justin Jefferson, Blake, Andre, Mark Andrews, Brock Bowers, Dwayne Jarrett, Pickens for those are all the receptions, but that's going to be 3 for OU, 2 for Bama, 1 for LSU. Receiving yards, Jefferson, 1,600 yards, had a huge year. Then Devontae, then Hollywood Brown, Andre Johnson, and Pickens just miss out. Then we have Blake, DeAnthony, Garrett Wilson. We'll just kind of go down here so you guys can see. So Mark Andrews was the best tight end. 1,140 yards as a tight end is crazy. Percy Harvin, Jalen Waddle. Jamar didn't honestly have as good of a year. They were really going to Jefferson, Brock Bowers. Okay, I want to go down and see running backs. So there it is. Michael Dyer always catches a lot of passes. 600 yards. So that'll be 3 points for Auburn there. 2 points for Miami with Clinton Portis. And then 1 point for LSU with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay, now we're looking at receiving touchdowns. So that's 3 points for Miami. Yeah, that's going to be 2 points each for Oklahoma and Bama, and Pickens, Andrews, DeAnthony, Jefferson, and Blake just miss out on the podium there. So that's how everyone's going to sit for offensive points. Now we're going to go look at defenders, kind of look at those. So Telvin Smith, I think that's back-to-back years he led the conference in tackles. So that'll be 3 points each for Florida State and Ohio State. And then Texas gets 1 point from their outside linebacker there. Then Queen, we'll see if there's Quay Walker, Keith Rivers. Just look for big names. Chase Young, Ryan Orakpo, Dallas Turner, Turner right there. Then we're going to look for TFLs. So Danny Stutzman gets Oklahoma 3 points there. Then Oklahoma, another 3 points there. And then Brian Orakpo is going to get Texas 1 point just off the podium. Trayvon Walker, Dallas Turner for Bama, Jalen Carter right there for Georgia, Carlos Dunlap, Brian Robinson right there, Grant Windstrom, Chase on right there, Chase Young. Okay, now we're going to look at sacks, and the sacks never really turn out to be that high. Barakpo gets 7.5. That's 3 more points for Texas. Man, Texas, I don't even know how many points they're going to be ahead. OU gets another 3 points, and then a bunch of teams finish at 5.5. So each of these teams is going to get 1 point for the 5.5s there. Then interceptions. Oh my God, another 3 points for Texas, another 3 points for LSU because they're tied. Then a ton of guys with 3. But you know what? I don't think I'm going to count any of these because there's so many guys with 3 points. I mean, maybe I'll give each team 1. I can give each team 1, whatever. That'll be 1 point, 2 points in total for Michigan there for each one of those guys. 1 point for Ohio State. Joe Hayden, 1 point. Jalen Ramsey, they'll get a point. Jordan Fuller, 1 point. Ed Reed and Jalen Ford will get Texas 1 point as well. So that is where all the points are going to kind of get divvied up. I'm not going to give points for returning, but kind of interesting to look at, see if there's any big names. Lendale White, big time returner apparently. Frank Gore right there. Those are kind of the big names. Let's see if anybody had just 2 touchdowns. Rashad Green had 1 of them. Then for punt yards, Frank Gore was the best punt returner in the conference. Lendale White right there as well. Then if we look at touchdowns, Dominic Blaylock. So that is going to be it, guys. That is where we sit after season 2. I'm going to go add up all those points, add them up with year 1, and then you guys will see where each one of these teams sit. I obviously don't know yet, but I'd imagine Texas has a pretty commanding lead. All right, so after season 2, this is what the standings are looking like, and Texas is out to a commanding lead. They were able to pick up 46 points in that season, probably the most I've ever seen in one season of a sim, and they are up to 74 on the year. Then second is Nebraska with 55. Third is LSU with 54. Fourth is Ohio State with 49. Fifth, Auburn, 43. Oh, and then tied for fifth, also Miami with 43. And then in seventh place, we have 04 USC with 37. I'd say those are the teams, maybe USC, maybe 01 Miami still have a chance. The rest of the guys are basically out of it, but that is the standings. We will add them up one more time at the end of the year and see who comes out on top. All right, so that is where we are sitting after year 2. We are now in the final season of the sim. We are now in year 3. Obviously, Texas has a huge lead, but if someone's able to win the Natty, win a Heisman, win the SEC, finish really strong, someone else could take the chain from Texas for sure. Okay, so we're gonna go through just quickly. I mean, so many of these teams are just going to be absolutely loaded. This Bama team has been very disappointing. You would like to see more from them. Here's what Auburn's working with, just really the worst team in the sim. I don't know how they're still competing, but they are hanging in there. I mean, that's just how good Cam Newton is every year. Here's where Clemson sits. Really good team. Haven't performed great in the sim, but a ton of talent. Florida, been decent so far, but with their talent, they should be doing better. Same with Georgia. Georgia might be the most talented team. I'd say Bama and Georgia are the 2 teams with the most talent, but haven't really been able to put it all together so far. Here's 2019 LSU. One other thing to keep in mind too, guys, is I'm going to be doing a MVP of each position at the end. So we're actually going to go look at their career stats through the 3 seasons and see who had the best stats for QB, receiver, running back, D-line, linebacker, and DB. And each of those positions will give their team 5 more points as well. So this is still wide open. Here's the SC roster, ton of talent. Oh my goodness. Texas, of course, first place, but I don't think their talent level totally outstrips Bama or Georgia or USC or anything. So I think this is still going to be open. Oregon, they have those young D linemen that are really coming into their own with DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead. That's going to add a ton to their defense, but not quite as deep as some of the other teams. Oklahoma's actually been surprisingly pretty good. They're kind of top heavy, a ton of really good players, but don't have that talent throughout. Ohio State is still in the running. They're in third, and they have so many players. So as we can see, a ton of talent on all these teams. Oh, let's look at Miami, another team. This team has it all. Jeez, look at them. So a ton of talent. We're going to sim here till about week 6. Then we're going to quickly look at the stats, see where everyone's kind of sitting. Then we'll start looking for matchups and see if we can get in a good game. All right, so we are now in week 6. We are 5 weeks into this season. Let's look at the top 25, see where any of our guys are up near the top. So Michigan, this is coaching poll. We'll look at AP, but Michigan in 2nd, Oregon in 4th, Ohio State, Florida State, USC, Texas, Bama, Nebraska, Miami, Oklahoma. So a lot of guys in the top 25. Let's look at the conference standings. I believe Michigan will be pretty high. I'm pretty sure I saw Texas with a few losses, so that could definitely open this right up. So Ohio State, Oregon, the only undefeated teams. Michigan with 1 loss, Florida State with a loss. So 4 teams. I mean, Ohio State has been up there, but okay. Bama, USC, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, all with 2 losses. Florida, Nebraska, down here, Miami, 2 losses. And then LSU and Auburn are kind of at the bottom of the totem pole. Florida as well. I mean, LSU not doing well, but everyone's still kind of in the mix there. Let's look at the Heisman watch, see if anybody's high up here. So Chris Howard, the running back for Michigan, Vince Young, James Cook. So 3 guys in the top 5. Other than Vince, not really the usual suspects, but cool to see. Okay, let's look at the team stats through 5 games, get an early idea on where all our guys sit. So this is total offensive yards. Auburn, the #1 offense, then Florida State, USC, Florida, Texas still in the top 5. If we look at pass yards, wow, first time I think that LSU isn't first. Auburn, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas, USC. Rush yards, oh my goodness, Nebraska's not in first. They've only played 4 games. These guys have played 5, but still, that is surprising. Usually they're like 300, 400, 500 yards ahead of everyone. So Alabama, Auburn, Nebraska, Florida State, Florida. Then if we go points per game, Oregon, that is the Oregon Ducks we were thinking we were going to get in the sim. 52.2 points per game, 49 for Auburn, 46 for Ohio State, 43 for USC, and 42 for USC. Okay, now we're going to go look at defensive stats. So Ohio State, the #1 defense. Oh, they've only played 3 games. So yeah, some teams have played 5, but they're there. Then pass rush yards allowed, that's what we're looking at. Rush yards allowed, kind of. Ohio State's kind of throwing this off because they've only played 3, and points per game allowed. So, oh, wow, Oregon has #1 in points per game scored and #2 in points allowed. So they're off to a great start. Bama by far the most sacks and interception, LSU, then USC. Quickly, we go look at the player stats. So right here, Timmy Tebow, then Matt Leinart, Marcus Mariota, a ton of, like, all those guys are plus 180 pass rating, which is huge. Trevor Lawrence is last, Ken Dorsey, like all those are still over $160, so that's still really good. Passing yards, Burrow, Cam, Baker, then Vince Young. If we look at the bottom, obviously Frazier, then we have Fields, Brian Greasy. If we look at passing touchdowns, Cam, Vince, Jameis, and Burrow, then Leinart, bunch of guys kind of near the middle of the pack there. Rushing yards, once again, Nebraska played 1 less game, but not the leading rusher. We have Najee Harris, then Chris Howard, Devontae Freeman, James Cook, Reggie Bush. Shalama Green is, on 5th, 6th right there. Rushing touchdowns, Howard, Cook, Irving, Harris, and Michael Dyer, Clinton Portis. Let's look at QB rush yards, actually. So most QB rush yards, Cam at 290, Vince Young and Tebow around 250 each. Okay, we're looking at receiving quick. Amari Blake, this guy's been just a killer for Auburn. CeeDee Lamb, Terrace Marshall, Limas Snead, Dwayne Jarrett, Andre Johnson, Devontae Smith. Then if we look at receiving touchdowns, Terrace Marshall, Amari Blake, and Limas Snead. So those guys are kind of leading the way right there. Oh, quickly look at defense. See if there's just Telvin Smith, I think, has led the country in tackles every single year, and he has the exact same face as Keith Rivers. But yeah, so that's interesting that he's probably going to win best linebacker if he keeps that up. Savion Jones has the most sacks. Clavion Chason, William Joseph, Keith. Oh, these are tackles for loss. Sorry. D.R.M. Payne, Jared Wilson, Chris McLennan, and Damon Payne Jr. leading the way for sacks. A bunch of guys at 2.5. Then if we look at INTs, Patrick Queen leading the way, Charles Woodson right there, and just a bunch of other guys with 2. All right, so that is where we sit. Now I want to go look at scores and schedules. We're going to look at the SEC. We're going to see if there's any really big games that we could hop in and watch during this sim. So Nebraska, Oregon, I want to go to more like after week 10. So Michigan, Michigan State, Georgia, Florida, Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, USC, Miami, Florida State. So any of those games, depending on the record. Ooh, Michigan, Oregon. I don't think I've ever watched a game with Oregon yet. Florida State, Clemson, Texas, Nebraska. Okay, let's sim to week 11. If this Michigan, Oregon game is both teams with like 1 loss or less, then we'll watch that. If not, we'll see if there's anything else around that time. All right, here we are in week 11. Let's look at the conference standings, see where everyone is sitting. Bama 7-2, Texas. So Texas won't die right there. Florida State. Okay, Nebraska, Ohio State. Okay, so lots of 2-loss teams still in the running. Then we have Miami, Michigan fell off, Oregon fell off, USC, LSU, Florida, Clemson, Auburn. So Auburn's kind of way near the bottom of the pack right now. Okay, let's look at top 25. Oh my goodness, Memphis 7-0, Nebraska, Bama, Texas, Ohio State, Washington, Notre Dame, Florida State, Miami. You're gonna look at the Heisman here. So we have Vince Young in first. If he could take this home, that would make it super difficult for anybody to catch Texas. Okay, let's look at scores and schedules for the SEC and see if we can find ourselves a game we can hop in. So Michigan, Oregon was the game we were gonna do, but kind of fallen off. Clemson, Florida State, Texas, Nebraska, 2-3 in the nation. I feel like I've watched so many Texas games so far, but I mean, that's the number 2 and 3 team in the country battling it out. I mean, we gotta hop into this one, of course. 2 of the best teams in the sim. I think Texas in first, Nebraska's in like 3rd. All 99s across the board. Let's check it out. So Texas, the number 2 offense in the country, absolutely killing it in points per game. Nebraska 37th, but the 2nd best run offense in the whole country. Nebraska's defense seems to be, a decent amount better. Here's their top players: Arakpo, Jamal Charles, Brian Robinson, and Ahmad Green, and some of their offensive linemen for Nebraska. So let's get this going. All right, we're just going to go to the 4th quarter. If it's close, we will hop in the game. All right, 14 all at halftime. We're going to sim to the 4th quarter. 21 all. Okay, 28-21. Looks like we're going to have a close game here. 28 all with 4 minutes left. Okay, so Nebraska just scores. Vince Young gets the ball back, stuck 7 with 2:50 left. We are going to watch this. So VY maybe been the best player in the sim. Texas has been by far the best team, but they have to win this game. I mean, these guys are going to be in the same conference. So if Texas wants to make the Natty, make the SEC championship game, they have to win this game. Because if they don't, and someone else wins the SEC, wins the Natty, gets high in all those stats, they could catch Texas. So here we go. This is huge. Vince Young drops back, little screen pass, get it to Jamal Charles in the flat, but they got there. That could have been a loss of about 2 or 3 more, but that is a great play by Nebraska. Yet the fast, speedy Jamal Charles in the flat, but he is going down. 3rd and 10 for Vince Young and these Texas Longhorns on the road in Lincoln, Nebraska. Here he is in shotgun. Here we go. Drops back. Blitzer coming off the edge. Completely free. Untouched. Wow. Nebraska. Is Texas probably has to punt this football? 3 timeouts left. What are they gonna do? They are going for it. I thought maybe you punt it away, use your timeouts, but 4th and 10, they are going for it. This is basically the ball game. Vince Young has to get it done. Drops back, finds an open receiver, but he goes out of bounds short of the sticks. Now it is not completely over. Vince Young still has a chance. They basically can't allow them to score, and you gotta, you have 3 timeouts, so no first downs, no field goal, and you still have an outside shot. But you got to stop this triple option offense when they have the lead, and that is going to be tough. This is what Nebraska is built for, is running the ball, running out the clock, holding on to leads. First carry there, they get it down to 2nd and 3 already. They're in their triple option, wishbone type offense, motion across the field with Phillips. Go up the middle to their fullback. He tries to hurdle. He's down to 3rd and inches. Texas uses their 2nd time out. That is a huge stuff. But this is where it all comes down to this. They're on the outskirts of field goal range. You have to stop him here if you're Texas. Tommy Frazier drops a play action and they dump it out to the flats. No way. And that is going to do it. Texas, no timeouts left. Play action on 3rd and inches for the Cornhuskers. That is shocking, but what a play call. That is going to do it. Oh, wow. Nebraska scored, then Texas got the ball back, scored really quickly, but they're down 14. So there it is. The Longhorns go down to the Cornhuskers. That is an absolutely huge win for Nebraska. Knock off Texas. Vince Young, pretty good day. 4 touchdown passes, 250 yards, 71 yards on the ground for Charles, 41 on the ground for BY. Receiving, no one had a huge day, but kind of was just spreading it around. Then for Nebraska, Will Bell had 90 yards, Moore had 62. Rushing the ball, Ahmad Green had 150. Their fullback had 86. Frazier had 57. And so they ran the ball all over them. Tommy Frazier, 160 QB rating, 240 yards and a touchdown. You will take that. And Nebraska knocks off Texas, and now that is going to open the door for one of these other teams to try to catch the University of Texas. So that is huge for the sim. Give a little bit of a little bit of intrigue to the last part of this video. All right, so we are just going to sim to conference championship weekend, see who's in the final game, look at where they are, see if anyone going to win the Heisman. We'll watch some of that game, then hopefully one of our teams is able to make it to the national final. All right, so here we are. Let's go look at the scores and schedules. We will see who's in this SEC championship game. Florida State, Nebraska. Florida State, that is the first time we are really talking about them much. 8th in the country. Nebraska is 4th. Okay, I want to look at the top 25. I mean, maybe Nebraska is the only one with a chance. Central Michigan, 12-0, and Rice is 12-0. Yeah, that's tough. Ohio State, number 2 with 2 losses. Nebraska. So we could maybe get a Nebraska, Ohio State in the national final. Crazy, but it's so weird that they let these like MAC schools and stuff, you're not going to be the number 1 team in the nation, Central Michigan, even with no losses. So that is where we are kind of sitting. Hopefully at least one of our teams can make the national final. If we look at the Heisman watch, so the Central Michigan running back in first. So, oh my goodness, none of our guys are really on there. We have Najee and Vince kind of lower down. Look at the conference standings, see kind of the final record for all these teams. Nebraska and Ohio State are the only 2-loss teams. Hopefully somehow they could meet the national title. That'd be sick. Florida State, Bama, Michigan. So a lot of teams kind of squished together in the middle here, which makes sense because the teams start getting so good, it's just hard to win that many games against that grade of teams. Where's Texas? So Texas finished 7-5. That is huge. That is going to open the door for, a new team to try to take this belt from Texas, or Texas might be able to hold on. Okay, we are going to, hop into this Nebraska Florida State game, 99s across the board, see how this shakes out. So here's the stats of the teams. Wow, Florida State, the 3rd ranked offense in the country, pretty balanced too, like kind of 35, 30, 40 for pass and rush. But then Nebraska, the number 1 running team in the nation, so you have to stop the run against them. Neither team's defense is great, but you got to remember that they're playing the best offenses of all time every freaking week. There's their top 3. Here's theirs with Darby, Green, and Joyner. And yeah, 2 really good teams. So we will see. SEC championship, Florida State, Nebraska. All right, we're just going to sim to halftime. We'll look at where we are. And then if it's close in the 4th quarter, then we will hop in. All right, super close at the half, 17-14 Florida State. Let's get this to the 4th quarter. Okay, Nebraska had a huge 4th quarter. They are up 28-17, but Florida State has the ball and is driving, but there's something happened there, and Nebraska gets the ball back, but they punt it off. So Florida State has a chance, nothing there. Nebraska, nothing there, punt it away again. Okay, Florida State just went and scored. They weren't able to get the 2-point conversion. They are stuck 5. Nebraska has the football, but this is what, like I said, against Texas, this is what Nebraska is built for. A lead late in the 4th quarter, and you got to stop their run game. Your hogs up front. Oh my God, they did an HB pass and just hit Ronald Darby in the face. Oh my goodness. What was their offensive coordinator calling there? That is insane. Clock is stopped. Ahmad Green in motion. Speed option, flip it out to Lawrence Phillips. Ooh, that's a great play by Florida State. They get him into 3rd and 6. So last game against Nebraska that we watched, Nebraska got into 3rd and short. Here they're 3rd and 6, and they decided to pass the ball instead of running. This seems more likely a pass here, 3rd and 6. But with this team, you just never know. Maybe they'll try a running back pass and throw it off someone's face mask. So we will see. Tommy Frazier under center. His wing triple option offense. Here we go. Tommy Frazier straight drop, passes it. Oh my goodness, he has the corn route. He breaks a tackle past the 50-yard line inside Florida State territory. Florida State is down to 2 timeouts, and that dot by Tommy Frazier was crazy. And now Nebraska has you right where they want you. Oh my God, but Tommy Frazier's dropping back and he's getting pressured. And he goes down. What an awful play call. 2nd and 17. Florida State still has 1 timeout. I mean, the sack was bad. I guess it might have been better than an incompletion because you forced Florida State to use a timeout. But I don't know. You're the best rushing team in the nation. Run the football. There we go. Florida State cleans that up. And all of a sudden, it went from 1st and 10 deep inside Nebraska side of the 50 to now 3rd and 14. Florida State does have no timeouts, but if Nebraska tries to throw here and it's incomplete, nope, they're going to run. Speed option, and Tommy Frazier goes down. Jameis Winston and Florida State are going to have a chance here with about a minute 15-ish left. And, we'll see what famous Jameis can do. Here's the punt. It goes up through the end zone. Florida State is going to get it on the 20-yard line. Jameis Winston, about a minute left. SEC championship, needs a touchdown, needs the score. Definitely unlikely, but hey, they have a ton of weapons. You have Jameis at quarterback. It is not impossible. Jameis in gun, little motion over with Rashad Green. Play action, dump off. I get a first down or get out of bounds. That is a great tackle by Nebraska. You keep the clock moving. 2nd and 1. You are gonna have to push that ball a little deeper down the field here, Jameis. Oh gosh, they're spiking the football. 3rd and 1, 51 seconds left. 3 of 12 on 3rd down for Florida State. So here we go. Spread set, 2x2. Jameis in the gun, drops back, finds someone open along the sideline, and he's able to get out of bounds. That is huge for Florida State. That is a giant pickup. Like I said, able to get out of bounds. That is absolutely massive. Okay, here it is again. Jameis empty, quads to the bottom of your screen. Jameis in shotgun, drops back, has time, throws it towards this sideline. Another huge completion. Receiver falls out of bounds. You keep that clock stopped. 2 back-to-back great plays by Jameis, and now Florida State is cooking. Just outside the 40-yard line, 42 seconds left. Plenty of time. Jameis drops back, goes over the middle this time with the slant to Kelvin Benjamin for 13 yards, and Florida State is moving. Wow, the clock is stopped while they move the chains. They're going to just spike this ball, basically lose no time. Yeah, spike that ball. 35 seconds left. Jameis Winston, that should be about the 30-yard line. Hey, you have a great opportunity to steal this one for Florida State. This is an incredible drive by Jameis Winston. We have a shotgun look, tight set. Jameis drops back, finds someone over the middle, a little hitch, and he's short. That is huge tackle because now that clock is moving. It is moving. You got to spike this football. Oh no, they are going for it here. Just spread set, snap the ball. Jameis drops back, try to attack the side. Oh my goodness, Kelvin Benjamin inside the 10-yard line, but the clock is moving. You got to get to this ball and spike it, and you are going to have 3 chances at the end zone. 16 seconds left, and they lose 3 seconds. Wow. Jameis Winston to Kelvin Benjamin. What a completion. This has been an incredible drive by Jameis, especially sometimes, or when you just kind of watch these, sometimes the QBs can do some weird stuff, but this has been the perfect drive by Jameis. You have 3 shots at the end zone here in 13 seconds. Here we go. Jameis drops back, pressure in his face, and it's out of bounds. Nebraska brought a blitz at Jameis, wasn't able to pick it up. You're down to 2 shots and 10 seconds left. Wow. Huge play. You got to remember too, Florida State was stopped on a 2-point conversion, or they would be stuck 3 right now and could kick a field goal, but now they got to go for the win. Jameis under center. He drops back, quick 3-step, drop slant over the middle, but he's short. They are going to be out of time. I don't think they're going to be able to get to the line in time. They are about a yard short. That reminds me of that Rams Super Bowl against the Titans. The slant, he reaches it out, isn't able to get it, and Nebraska holds on. Tommy Frazier, SEC championship. Wow, that was the play of the game. That was a great dot in along the sideline to flip field position on 3rd down. But what a drive by Jameis. He did it all. A minute 6 left, I believe. He went 79 yards, just short. No timeouts. If they even have one timeout there, they probably win. But Nebraska holds on, holds off Jameis. Now we do have an outside chance at Nebraska, Ohio State meeting in the national final, which would be really cool. Here's where everyone sits. So Jameis, really good day, 366 yards, 3 touchdowns. Freeman had 89 yards on the ground. Jameis adds another 42. Receiving, Shaw, Green, Benjamin, Freeman, Potier. So kind of the usual suspects there. Tommy Hill has he's an 80 overall receiver and just been great for them. Not able to run the ball at all. Barely over 100 yards rushing, and they still are able to win. Tommy Frazier has a great day, especially for him. 342 yards, a 204 QB rating. Great day. So there it is. Nebraska wins the conference, and now we will just see who is in the national final. Is it gonna somehow be Ohio State, Nebraska? That is kind of the dream matchup. So we are just gonna sim to bowl season. We'll take a look at all the bowl matchups. Hopefully at least one of our teams is in the national final. We'll see right here if one of our guys won the Heisman. Texas, 7-5. I don't think Vince Young is gonna do it. So this is just gonna open up so Raheem Sanders, Arkansas, running back. Oh my God, he had like 2,300 yards. Wow, he had a really good year. Najee Harris, Vince Young are only 2 in the top 5, and they really weren't even close. So no Heismans this year. We are gonna go look at the bowl games. Okay, Nebraska is in the national final against Rice. So there we just kind of ruined the surprise there. We don't have 2 of our teams, but we do have Nebraska. So we're just gonna go through this quick. Texas in the Birmingham Bowl, not a great year for Texas. Georgia 6-6. SC versus K-State, LSU right there. They're gonna be in a lot of these just kind of lower bowls because everyone just finished around that 7-5, 6-6, 8-4 mark. Oregon right there. Michigan versus Texas Tech. Florida State versus Georgia Tech. Bama versus Wisconsin. Miami versus Vautech. Ohio State, Memphis in the Sugar Bowl. Nebraska, Rice. Ohio State, if it wasn't for Rice, would have made the national final. That is tough. Yeah, because Memphis lost, so it's literally because Rice went 13-0. Damn, that is too bad. But we do have a team in. I have a feeling Nebraska is gonna kind of just shit pump these guys. I don't think it's gonna be close. This Nebraska team is just too good. If Nebraska wins this, they were quite far behind Texas. I think they're like 30-ish points behind, but Texas did not have a year like last year, even close. So Nebraska wins this. They already won the SEC. That's an extra 12 points. If they are able to take this home, if they lead the conference in rushing, really good defense, they have a shot. So we are about to see this right now. So this is where they sit in all the, yardage marks and stuff. Obviously, Rice looks like they have a really good defense, but you got to think of the teams Rice was playing compared to the teams Nebraska was playing. Nebraska's schedule just absolutely blows these guys out of the water. Their best overall players are 88s and an 86 compared to a bunch of 99. So I don't think this is going to be close. We are just going to sim through this really quick. Obviously, if it's close in the 4th quarter, we will hop on and kind of see what happens, but I can't wrap my head around this Rice team being any sort of competition. I'm really excited for the next game where there's the playoff and you won't get as many of these just kind of stupid matchups in the final game. So we will see. Like I said, I think this is going to be a bloodbath though. All right, Rice is in there 14-7 at halftime. I don't think it is really going to matter, but we will see. 21-10, so like within striking distance, but like I said, I don't think it is going to matter. Okay, yeah, 24-10 with 3:43 left. Yeah, that is going to be it. Nebraska is going to win the national title. There it is. They win it 24-10. So honestly, didn't really break them apart like I thought they might. Tommy Frazier in his last game, 183 yards, 2 touchdowns. National champion. Ahmad Green, Tommy Frazier, Lawrence Phillips. If we look at receiving, there we go. So that kind of anticlimactic, them playing Rice. It would have been really cool if they would have got to play Ohio State. Rice 13-0, playing an just shitty schedule, makes it in. But there we go. Nebraska, an extra 12 points. So I really think it is is going to come down to either Nebraska or Texas winning this whole thing, winning the 3-year sim. Okay, I'm going to sim through the bowl games. Then we're going to go look at all the final stats. We're going to give MVP awards. We're going to do all of that right now. All right, so we are going to go look at team stats first. Here we go. We're going to go to the SEC. Now, total offensive yards, and Miami is going to get 5 points, Auburn 4, Bama 3, Texas 2, Michigan 1. Passing yards, LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma. Texas gets another 2 points there, Miami 1. Rushing yards, Nebraska 5 points, 4 for Michigan, 3 for Bama, 2 for Ohio State, 1 for Oregon. Points per game, Auburn 5 points, LSU 4, Bama 3, Oregon 2. Texas gets another point there. So that is huge. Offensive yards and all that. I think Nebraska and Texas kind of evened each other out right there. Nebraska has to have the better defense, get some defensive points here. Total offensive yards allowed, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska gets 3, Georgia gets 2, Oregon gets 1. Pass yards allowed, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, another 3 points, Oregon, Florida State. Rush yards allowed, Georgia gets 5, Michigan gets 4, Miami 3, Bama 2, LSU 1. And points allowed, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska gets another 3, 2 for Miami, 1 for Oregon. If we look at sacks, Bama gets 5 points, Ohio State gets 4, LSU gets 3, Miami gets 2, Michigan gets 1. And last INTs, Florida State, Michigan, LSU, Georgia, USC. So Texas got no points there. Nebraska did get some, so that is going to help them. Okay, now we're going to look at season stats for the players. Looking at the SEC, so Tim Tebow, the highest rated quarterback, then Vince Young, then Matt Leinart, Mariota, and Newton. If you look at the bottom, it was Trevor Lawrence, Tommy Frazier, Ken Dorsey, but all of them honestly had pretty freaking good years. If we look at pass yards, that's going to be 3 for Burrow, 2 points for Cam, 1 point for Baker, Dorsey, Vince Young, Trevor Lawrence, Matt Leinart, all the way down. Total touchdowns, 56 for Vince Young. Plus, you got to add his rushing. I'll be shocked if anyone catches him. So I'm going to add the rushing touchdowns as well, but just off the face, it probably will be these 3, maybe even in that order, unless like Marcus Mariota had like 13 rushing touchdowns and Burrow had none. So I would assume it's going to be that order. So Vince Young is going to get 3, 2 for Burrow, 1 for Cam there. We look at rushing yards, and oh, that is huge. Nebraska doesn't get the 3 points there. Najee Harris is going to get 3. Ahmad Green is going to get 2. Then Chris Howard is going to get 1. Then we get James Cook, Devontae Freeman, Bucky, Reggie Bush, Lawrence Phillips down there, Clinton Portis, Jamal Charles. We look at rushing touchdowns. Howard, Najee, James Cook, top 3 right there. Oh, we got to go rushing yards. Oh, Vince Young gets them 3 points right here. The running back rushing yards. So Vince Young does get them 3 points, 750 yards. Fields in second with 650. Then Cam in third with 617. Here's a look at their touchdowns. So Vince only added 4 on the ground. Fields added 7. Cam added 8. Tebow added 8. I'll have to look and see how many Joe Burrow added as well. Then we're going to go to receiving here. So Terrace Marshall had the most receptions at 97. So that's going to be 3 points. 2 points for Auburn there, 1 point for CeeDee Lamb and Oklahoma. 1,717 yards for Terrace Marshall. That is a huge year. Crazy. So he had an absolutely massive year. Then Andre Johnson, another 1 point for OU there. Texas just misses out on the podium there. Then if we look at receiving yards, okay, this is one of the best receiving years ever. 1,717 yards and 21 touchdowns. Limas Snead, 18. Garrett Wilson and Amori Blake will each get their schools 1 point with 17 touchdowns. Okay, now we're going to look at receiving yards for running backs, and you can kind of just get a look at where all the other receivers, how they did. Jamar and Justin didn't really finish it quite as strong. Nothing for running backs yet, but we're going to see okay, so Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get LSU 3 points there. Trey Sermon is going to get OU 1, and then Michael Dyer. So those 3 finished all right in a row. All right, then we are going to go look at defense. So Keith Rivers finishes with the most tackles. That's going to be 3 for USC, 2 for Florida State, 1 for Clemson right there. Then if we look at TFLs, Savion Jones finishes with the most TFLs. Then Lawrence Jackson, then Christian Barrymore. We can also just kind of look, Keith Rivers, just see kind of where everyone finished. Right there, Sean Taylor as a safety, 14 TFLs, crazy. Then we're going to look at sacks, Christian Barrymore, Savion Jones, Mike Hall, a few other guys here with 5.5, so they're all going to get 1 point there. Then lastly, INTs. So it's just going to, each of these teams is going to get, so 3 points Michigan, 6 points for LSU there, and then another 3 points for Georgia because of Lewis Sign. That is where everyone sits. And now I want to go look at career stats. This is one of the reasons that I wanted to do all 3 Sims years back to back to back like this, is now we can sort by SEC, and this was how each of these players finished over the 3 years. So this is going to be super cool to see. So I'm not going to give points for each category again, but I'm just going to pick an MVP looking at all the stats. And if you guys disagree, let me know in the comments who you think actually should have won the MVP, but I think it shouldn't be too hard to figure out. So look at pass rating. Tim Tebow had the highest, Joe Burrow, Cam, all super high. We look at total passing yards, Burrow, Cam, Baker, Vince Young. So Burrow by far had the most pass yards. Second or third most pass rating. Passing touchdowns, Cam, Vince Young. So right here, just by throwing the ball, you got to give it to Joe. I'd say Cam, Vince Young are right there with him. Also Baker. So Tommy Frazier had about a third of the total passing yards. Brian Greasy, Sensen Bennett, Jameis, Trevor Lawrence. Same with touchdowns right there. So to keep in mind though, we got to look at rushing yards. So first, let's just find the QBs and then we'll kind of talk about it because I want to look. Okay, so Vince Young adds another 2,500 on the ground and 72 rushing touchdowns. The MVP for QBs comes down to Joe Burrow or Vince Young, but Vince Young won a national title, 72 more touchdowns on the ground, another 2,500 yards in 3 years. Burrow was there, but I have to give it to Vince Young. I do. So that's going to be 5 more points for Texas. I'm not a Texas fan, so I'm not a Texas home or anything like that. I just think Vince Young winning the Natty, adding all those rushing totals to his passing yards, I think you got to go to VY. Okay, most rushing yards. The fact that none of the Nebraska running backs finished first is shocking to me. So Chris Howard on 1 extra carry. Jeez. Okay, they all averaged about the same yards per carry. Wow, that is tough. That is tough. I think we gotta look at receiving yards for these 3. I think it's gotta come down to one of those 3, especially these 2. So I'm gonna go to Michigan and Nebraska and see where each one of those guys finished receiving. So for Chris Howard, he added another 891 and 8 touchdowns on the ground. You gotta give it to Chris Howard. He finished with more rushing yards, more rushing touchdowns, way more receiving yards, and more receiving touchdowns. So you gotta give the number, which is shocking to me. I was sure it was gonna be one of the Nebraska guys, but I think you gotta give it to Chris Howard. Another 5 points for Nebraska. That is huge. If you look, Devontae Freeman, this is just kind of where the rest of the guys finished as well after 3 seasons. You gotta keep in mind it's only 3 years. We look at total touchdowns, Lawrence Phillips, then Howard, then JK, Ahmad, Reggie, Etienne. Yards per game, so a bunch of guys. Like if you look at Reggie Bush, over 100 yards per game. Maybe we got to look at Reggie too. Finished with 41 rushing touchdowns, so only 5 behind Howard, 30 less yards per game, but Howard had 800 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. Let's take a look. Who knows? So Reggie added only 1,000 yards and 11. So I don't think his receiving yards was enough there. I'm giving it to Chris Howard. 5 points for Michigan there. Chris Howard is going to take home our run game MVP. Obviously, if you guys disagree, let me know in the comments, but I think that is true. Okay, then we're going to look at receptions. Amari Blake finished with the most, 3 more than Andre, Dwayne Jarrett, Hollywood Brown. If we look at yards, Andre, Jefferson, Devontae, Dwayne. And if we look at receiving touchdowns, Blake, Snead, Jarrett, Terrace Marshall, Andre. This is tough. I don't know. To me, let's look at yards per game. Andre, the only one to break 100. And out of all the guys kind of up, I think it's got to come down to Amari Blake or Andre, but he has 500 more yards, but 8 less touchdowns, more yards per game, way better yak. So he's much more dangerous with the ball in his hands, few more drops. You know what? I think I'm going to give it to Andre there. I think that's close, but I think I'm going to go to Andre there. MVP of receivers. That is going to be another 5 points for Miami. Okay, if we just kind of go down here. So tight ends, Mark Andrews right there, Aaron Hernandez. These are just kind of all the receivers. I'm sure you guys will be interested just kind of on their total numbers. And I want wanted to see. So Michael Dyer finished with 1,600 yards receiving, the most out of any running back. Jamal Charles right around there with 1,400 as well. So there it is. Now we are going to go look at defense. So obviously the defensive stats aren't crazy, but total tackles, how? After 3 years? I mean, that doesn't make sense. They must not track the total tackles because some of the guys were averaging over 100 a year. Am I like in a weird... Okay, so maybe we'll go by solo tackle. I don't know why the total tackles is weird, but Telvin Smith, I think, clearly had the most tackles. I think he led at it 2 out of 3 years, and he added 10 sacks, 3 INTs. Keith Rivers is right there though with him. They almost had identical stats, but Telvin just had more tackles over the course of the 3 years. So I think I'm gonna go Telvin Smith, 5 points for Florida State for the best linebacker. If we go to D linemen, so Brian Robinson had 54 tackles for a loss, 12 and a half sacks. Brian Arakpo, 49 tackles for a loss, 14 sacks, and Christian Barrymore, 54 tackles a loss, 13 and a half sacks. Obviously, we can't watch the game film, anything like that, so we kind of got to go off this type of stuff. Oh man, I don't know. I think Brian Robinson maybe. Hey, like most tackles by far solos, but Brian Arakpo's right there. You know what? Because Texas had 2 of them right there, and you're kind of splitting hairs between them and Christian Barrymore. Brian Arakpo had the most sacks. Robinson was right behind him, right there for tackles for a loss. So they'll kind of split the award, 2.5 each. 5 points to Texas. So that's pretty big for Texas. Then if we look at INTs, this is kind of what we have to go by here. Wow, look at Texas there. None of them added a bunch of sacks. Stingley added 9 TFLs. So I'm just going to give it to Derek Stingley. Let's see if any of them had any touchdowns. So also pass deflections there. Good pass deflection mark. Forced fumbles, added 3. Oh, and he had 2 defensive touchdowns. So yeah, we're going Derek Stingley. 5 points LSU for best secondary player MVP. So that is all the MVPs, guys. If you disagree on any of them, let me know down below. Someone asked to see the best returners as well. So Frank Gore, Lendale White, and Trey Benson are the best. Benson had 2 punt returns though, and he had the most kick return yards. I'm not going to give any awards, but Trey Benson was definitely the best return man over the 3 years. So that is it, guys. And if you guys enjoyed this, you guys want to see another scenario like this in the future, leave a comment down below what you guys would like to see next before we see the final scores. I am going to go add up the stats right now, and you will see who the champ is. I'm guessing it's Texas. They had 2 MVPs right there. Nebraska had none. Nebraska did win the Natty and the SEC in their last year, but I do think Texas is going to hold on, but you guys will see right now. All right, and here are the final rankings, and it was an absolute nail biter. LSU had an incredible season, getting 43 points. Even though they didn't have an amazing record, they just had so many guys with yardage, and their team totals for stats and yards were really, really good. So they got 43 points, and they ended up in second place with 97 points total. So that means Texas is actually going to take this home with 99 points. They're going to get first. 05 Texas, then like I said, 2019 LSU, then 95 Nebraska. It was actually a little bit further back than I thought. Then in fourth, we had 2018 Ohio State. Fifth, we had 01 Miami. And then here are the scores for the rest of the teams. Now, if you want to see something similar to this giant sim, I actually did another one where I put 12 of the greatest college football quarterbacks ever into one recruiting class and sim through their careers, and we got to track where they signed coming out of high school, who ended up starting right away, who was stuck as a backup like their whole career, and so much more. Now, if you want to check that out, you need to watch this video right here.